Hi everyone, Katrina from ecomaine here. We wanted to put together a little webinar for you just in case you were stuck at home, you couldn't make it to school, all the reasons that you might not be in school right now. And this is about your trash and recycling. So you get to learn a little bit, you get to have a little fun, and kind of meet some of those cabin fever blues. So our webinar today is on the journey of your recycling and your trash. So we're going to talk about where it goes, what happens to it, why it matters, and just all the things about your recycling and trash. So hope you enjoy it. So ecomaine, you probably already know, is the place that your trash and your recycling comes. When you throw something away in the recycling bin, we take it. When you throw something away in the trash bin, we take it. Do we do the same things with both of your materials? No. We have two buildings. One is called a single sort recycling facility, which means we take everything from your cardboard, your paper, your plastic, your metal, your glass, put it all together in one bin, and then that comes to our building and then we sort it out for you. This goes over here, this goes over here, this goes over here. So I'll talk about how and show you videos of how everything's sorted later. That's one building. Our other building is our waste to energy building. Maybe that's a new word for you. Waste to energy means we take your trash and turn it into electricity. Waste to energy, trash to electricity, which is incredibly cool. We have a couple things that are left over from that process, mainly ash from the trash that we burn, electricity from the power that we make from your trash, and some pollution that then we treat. So I'll talk about that in the second part of our webinar today. So those are two facilities. We also have what we call a ash fill or landfill, and that's where the waste trash, after it's burned, goes to hang out forever. And I'll show you some pictures of that later too. But first, I'd like to show you this map. This is where we are as a company. We have one facility down in Portland, Maine, which you can see way down at the bottom, right over here. And then we take all of these other towns. We take their trash, their recycling, or both. We have about a third of Maine's population, or about 400,000 people. So when I'm talking later about, you put your fork in the recycling bin. Well, we can't take your fork, but what if one person did that? That's not a big deal, is it? But what if like 10,000 people did that? That could be a problem. Or things like the plastic bags. We'll talk about why that's bad later. So again, if one person or 10 people did this, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But if a lot of people from a lot of our towns are doing it, that can be a real problem. So that is just where we are. I like to show that map so you get an idea of who's coming from where or what's coming from where. You might notice different colors. Those don't really matter too much. It's just that the green, the owner member communities, that means that those towns kind of started ecomaine back in the 70s. Back then we were called regional waste systems, and we took a lot of trash, and then we turned into ecomaine in 2007 when we started taking recycling. And the blue and the yellow towns there, the associate members and the contract members, that just means they haven't been with us as long as the green ones, but they're still wonderful and we love getting their trash and recycling. So let's keep going. Now, every day, what are we throwing out? Well, we're throwing away recycling, we're throwing away trash, we're throwing away things that could be reused. Maybe we don't want them anymore, so we say, get them out of my house, I don't want them. So we put those in the trash can or elsewhere, and then we're also, unfortunately, we're throwing away a lot of food. The studies have shown through the Environmental Protection Agency that around 30 to 40% of our landfills are full of organic material, meaning food waste, even things like paper towels. If it came from nature, we kind of call that organic materials. So there's a lot of things that we can do with these 4 different materials. We don't want them all in the trash. So there's different places to put everything. We'll talk about that. Now, just like we don't want everything in the trash, there's a lot of things to think about before kind of the bottom. See where the waste energy is way down there? That's at the bottom. That's where your trash goes. So we want to try and reduce, reuse, recycle, and compost. 4 ideas before we say, oh, I'm going to put it in the trash now. It's trash time. So let's try and think of other things before we put stuff in the trash. The first one is reduce. Think about what that means. Can I reduce or make less stuff? When I go wash my hands, can I use 1 less paper towel or a couple less paper towels? When I go to get my morning coffee or my morning smoothie, can I use my own reusable straw instead of a plastic one? at that same coffee shop or smoothie shop or wherever, can I use my own reusable mugs? Or I've got one for water here, which is great. So by using reusable stuff, we're also reducing the amount of, say, paper cups that we have to get. You know, they've got a top. If it's a cold beverage, sometimes you've got a straw. So we want to use less stuff when we go out and buy things. So to reduce means to use less. Think about it this way too. Can you reduce the amount of water you use when you're brushing your teeth? So there's a lot of ways that we can reduce our use of things, whether it's paper towel that saves trees, whether it's using less plastic, which saves a lot of oil. That's where plastic actually comes from, petroleum byproduct of oil. You know, can we save everything that we can? So reduce first. The second one, reuse. What does that mean? Easiest question of the day, to use something again, to reuse it. So going back to this guy, is this reusable? Or do I throw it away at the end of the day? Definitely want to reuse that. My straw is reusable. I carry around these little fun fork, knife, and spoon. Little kit in my bag. I wash them whenever I'm done with them, and I put them back in my bag, and then I'm ready to have my lunch, my yogurt, my breakfast, whatever. Also in my lunch bag, I like to carry around my reusable containers. This one had my yogurt and fruit and granola in it today. So can you use things that are reusable? And in that way, you're using less stuff than you didn't have to throw away. So think about this. Maybe I had my peanut butter and jelly sandwich in here. Does anyone use maybe a Ziploc bag for their peanut butter and jelly? Well, you're gonna have to throw that bag away when you're done with it. So it's gonna go in the trash can. But if you put your peanut butter and jelly sandwich in here, then you can wash it out at the end of the day and reuse it again the next day. So reuse is use something again. Also, maybe look at your feet or your shirt or your dress or your jacket. Are you gonna outgrow that someday? If you do, can you then give it away? Can someone else use that? So give it to Goodwill, Salvation Army, a friend, a neighbor, a younger brother or sister, anyone that you know that could use it, instead of you saying, well, I'm done with it, it's going in the trash because I don't want it in my house anymore. That's not really what we should be thinking about. We should say, is this thing still good? Yes, give it away. No, what else can I do with it if not trash? The next one, recycle. What does that mean? So to recycle means to turn something into something else. So say you put your milk jug in the recycling bin. It comes to us, we sort it off, and then we send that off to be turned into something new. And the cool thing I like to show for this is this piece of plastic lumber. Usually lumber is made out of wood, made from trees, but this is made out of plastic. And it's made out of your milk jugs. So if we take these, we chop them up, we wash them, we dry them, we melt them down, then we can turn them into plastic lumber. And this is super cool. It can build things like playgrounds, benches, rocking chairs, all kinds of wonderful things. Or of course, it can go off and turn into another milk jug. So by recycling, I'm turning one thing into something else. Another example here, my pie plate. Used to have pie on it. It was delicious. Ate it all. It goes off, and things like this can turn into reusable water bottles. Now this guy, super bendy, right? That's because it's thin, it's supposed to be, but do I want this guy to be bendy? Tried to squeeze it, I can't. So they make recycled products really, really strong because they want you to be able to reuse things. So this is really cool, made out of recycled aluminum. The next one, compost. What does that mean? So to take one thing and turn it into something else in the way of food into soil. So am I going to eat the middle of this apple? I don't think so. Am I going to eat a banana peel? No. Am I going to eat the piece of sandwich that fell on the floor and then my friend kicked to the next table? No. So I'm not going to eat certain parts of some foods, or maybe I'm super full, or again, maybe something fell on the floor. So anything that is food that is left over can be put in a compost bin and go off and make soil. Does anyone have a favorite plant? I like strawberry plants, ranunculus plants, maple trees. So any plant can be helped with compost. So think of it this way. If you compost, you can help grow your new favorite plants. It's also helping our process too, because when we put food into the trash can, Well, we're burning your trash. We'll talk about that later, how it works and everything. We're burning your trash at around 2,000, 1,800 degrees. And if we have a lot of juicy, wet food waste in there, is that going to be helpful for the fire or not helpful for the fire? So we want your food in a compost bin if you ever have that opportunity. Of course, not everyone has the ability to compost, and that's okay. Then your food would go in the trash. We don't want it in the recycling bin. Nobody wants it at Goodwill or Salvation Army. So if you have a compost bin, great. If you don't, think about getting one. There's really cool subscription services, Garbage to Garden, we compost it, Fox Composting down south, Scrap Dogs a little bit north. And of course, there's something really cool called vermicomposting. That means composting with worms. Check it out. Super cool. You could keep a worm bin in your under your sink, in your closet, in your basement. Pretty cool stuff. So the next one, waste to energy. I mentioned that earlier. That's where you take your trash and turn it into electricity. So we are taking all your trash that comes into us, and this is things that you put in the trash can yourself. If you put recycling in the trash can, it doesn't get sorted out. If you put compost in the recycling bin, or the trash bin, it doesn't sort out. If you put all your clothes and things that you should have sent to be reused, and you put them in the trash can, they're gone. So we want just your trash in the trash can. And from there, we combust it or burn it and make it into electricity, which is really, really cool. Now, what's left after we combust it or burn it all is, we take your trash and we turn it into ash. Check that out. So that area used to be like at least 10 times the amount of trash here, and it was burned down into ash. Very compact. And that goes to what we call the landfill or the ash fill. Later on, I'm going to show you the difference between an ash fill and a whole trash landfill. They're very, very different. So let's keep going there. So we want to reduce and then reuse. So I've got some cool ideas here of anything from bringing your own grocery bag to the grocery store. Anybody do that? What about having your own water bottle? Anybody have one of those that fill up, just kind of like this guy? I like to put stickers on it. It makes it a lot more fun to carry around. And then of course, reusable cup, whether you want to put hot chocolate, tea, coffee, smoothie, anything under the sun in there. Also your reusable containers, we mentioned that guy. Reusable straws, we said that. And then this one down here is a little bit different, but try not to buy anything in packaging if you can buy it loose. So a lot of times I go to the grocery store and I see apples loose and I see apples in bags. If you can, try and buy them loose and then just give them a really good wash when you get home. And that way you're not just throwing away that bag that you used for, 5 minutes maybe from getting from the store to home. And because this is not recyclable. This is not something we can take. So try and limit the stuff that you buy in a package. Of course, you're always going to have to buy meat in a package and cereal in a box and things like that. But if you can avoid it, try. And then just some fun ideas over here. Here's a mailbox made out of license plates. And then this is a garden. Instead of being sideways in the backyard, maybe they didn't have a backyard, so they made it up and down. So they had all these soda bottles that they cut up, they planted, and they kind of screwed it onto wood or metal, and there you have a really cool garden. So just fun ways to reduce and reuse. And then of course recycling, because conservation is so important. Let's look at this graph here, or this picture. Now the top line, well, let's try it out. We need to make paper, so where do we go? Got to go get some trees, put them on a truck, bring them to the place where they are pulped up and made into paper. That paper goes off to you. You write a letter to your grandmother. You read a book. You get some junk mail. Any paper that you use, let's pretend you just put it right in the trash can. Just pretend. That trash gets picked up by the truck and it gets taken to the landfill. Now again, ecomaine takes your trash and we combust it or burn it. So your stuff would be much smaller, but still it's in the landfill. Now, can I get the paper out of the landfill to make it into new paper? No. So to make new paper, where do I go? Back here to the truck to make it. Pretend you put it in the trash. Truck takes it to the landfill, sits there forever and ever. I need to make more paper. Where do I go? You get where I'm coming from? Same idea for plastic. We take oil out of the ground. It's not very safe process. It's not environmentally helpful. It's very bad for the animals, and it's not at all cheap. So when we take plastic and we throw that right in the trash can, it's lost. But if we put it in the recycling bin, we can turn it into something new and wonderful, which is really cool. Same idea with metal. You and I use metal sometimes. We take metal ore out of the ground, and it's called mining, and then we have to refine it and clean it, and again, not very cheap, not very safe for the workers who do work there with it, and it's also kind of scary and unsafe for the animals who live wherever it was mined too. So we want to try and recycle. So let's check out this bottom line. If we want to make paper, we need some trees still, that's fair. We cut them down, we make paper, and let's pretend we recycle it this time. It comes to us, we sort it off, goes off to make new paper, comes back to us in one way or another. We have some more mail, we read a magazine or a book from the library, we get a letter, all kinds of stuff. We use paper every single day. And then if we recycle it, it goes off to make new paper, comes back to us, we recycle it, and on and on and on and on and on and on. Do we always have to come back here? No, because we have what we need in front of us to recycle. So if we put the recycling in the recycling bin, we're solid. But what in the world should we recycle? What should we be putting in that recycling bin? Everything? No, thank you. We don't want your shoes. We don't want your diapers. We don't want your Christmas lights. We don't want your chainsaws. We don't want your chip bags. We don't want your stuff that is just not recyclable. What we do take is your cardboard of any type. It could be thin cardboard, what we call paperboard, anything from your granola bar boxes, your milk or orange juice or milk alternative boxes. You can leave the top on or take it off, whatever you'd like. We take your cups. We take your egg cartons. These can be either cardboardy or plastic. We just don't want things that are made out of styrofoam. We'll talk about styrofoam in a little bit. We want even your pizza boxes. Pizza boxes are fine as long as they're not super greasy. Like this has a little bit. If you're concerned about it, well, look at that. Underneath, perfect. So we can always compost this guy and we can recycle this. If this happens to be greasy and gross, what can you do? Take off the top and give that to us, and then you can compost or trash the bottom. So pizza boxes are totally fine to take at ecomaine. So that's great cardboard for us. We also take your paper. Doesn't matter what color or size or shape it is. It just has to be larger than your palm or so, or a Post-it size, because everyone's palm is kind of different shape and size, right? So if you have a Post-it, that's around the size we want. But it could be anything from your old newspapers, your old magazines, or your Red Cross programs, anything like that. Yes, it's glossy, but yes, it's also totally fine to recycle. And then again, things like your cereal boxes. So any paper or cardboard is great to recycle. We want all your metals that are safe. We can't take the little screws that you took out of the wall. We can't take even things like your random metal. This is good to give away. If you don't want it, this goes in the trash, unfortunately. We want things like your soup cans, corn cans, bean cans, even the tops on spaghetti jars, and other things. We can take room spray, cooking spray, hairspray, just make sure those containers are empty. And of course, things like your aluminum foil and your pie plates, things like that are all great to recycle. Things like, think about a Hershey Kiss and how the wrapper of that is about this big. Well, is that going to be recyclable? Unfortunately not, unless you happen to eat a lot, which would be delicious, and you combine them all. Because anything super tiny is not able to be recycled because it just won't go through our machines. It will fall through, it will get lost, it just won't be recycled. So if it's something you want to recycle, make sure it's the right size too, meaning palm size or larger. The next one on there is glass. We take a glass and we don't actually recycle it, we turn it into a couple new things, which I'll show you later on, which is really cool. But we take your glass and it can be a little bit dirty. You might notice that there's some spots in there, and that's okay. We want your stuff that you give us to be empty, but it doesn't have to be super duper clean. We want it to be empty of stuff. Like we don't want you to give us, this much curry or peanut butter or jam or mayonnaise, scrape everything out. If you want to give it a little rinse, shake it out, great. We would love that, but we're not asking you to do that always. So all your glass containers, we don't want things like your mirrors and ceramic mugs and light bulbs, because those are not things that we can take, but any container that you had in the kitchen or the bathroom is safe to take. And finally, speaking of containers, we want your plastic. your plastic containers labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. We use 7 types of plastic kind of day to day, month to month, year to year. And some are things like your gelato container. This one's a number 1. Your wipes are number 2. And then of course there's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Lots of different types of plastic out there. So we want them all as long as they're a container. They're what we call rigid, and they have a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 on them. By rigid, I mean, think back to this bag. Can I squish it in my hand? Yes. So is it rigid? No. Let's think about this guy. I can squeeze it. I'm squeezing it. So if I can squeeze it, fine, but I can't crush this down in my hand like I can this. So even though I can squeeze this, it still has rigidity to it. So yes, recycle. No, don't recycle. Those are your rules of plastic. It's got to be a container with a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 on it. And it has to be rigid of some kind. It doesn't have to be rock hard, but I have to be able to have a shape. So does all this go in 5 different bins since we have 5 different types of materials here? No, it goes in one, and you put that on your curb, or it just goes in your bin at school or at work or Hannaford Shopping Center, and it comes to us by way of truck. So let's look at some of those trucks. Here's an example of one outside. Here's an example of another. He's opened up. He's dumping out all his paper, plastic, metal, glass, and cardboard on the floor. And then the front loader, this guy, takes it from there. Let's see what he does with it. So he's pushing all that paper, plastic, metal, glass, and cardboard up onto an upper level. And underneath all that recycling, there's a conveyor belt. What is that? That's something that moves from one place to another. And so it's moving things up the hill here. So he's going from here up a hill, and it falls down into an area where the cardboard is sorted, like this. The material falls down, goes over these things called rubber stars. Rubber stars, I can't even do my arms as big as they are. It's like bigger than my computer screen, probably like maybe this big. And they're quite large, and you can see them here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 on what we call an axle or a line, and it's helping, it's spinning the stars. So you might see the cardboard and large things go up and over. Small things have already fallen through and gone a different way. So cardboard goes one way, everything else goes a different way. And in just a minute, you're going to see something that we don't want. Right there. Anybody see that? That was a bag of trash. We don't want bags of trash in your recycling bin. Does anyone else see anything that that we might not want? See that stuff stuck in between the stars? That's bad. So we don't want what we call tanglers, or things that can get tangled in the stars. So the cardboard has been taken out, done by the stars. Everything else has gone another way. So that's the paper, plastic, metal, and glass. This right here, what you're watching, is where the paper is taken out. Now, we use smaller rubber stars. They're about this big. There's around 300 of them, and they're all spinning together on 2 hills like this on axles. So again, stars spinning around the axles. That's actually helping push the paper up and up and up and over. And it falls down onto its own belt, which goes a different way. And so the paper is taken out now, and the glass, metal, and plastic has fallen through the stars and gone a different way. Here's that second part here, where my fingers are wiggling. That's what we're watching right now. And so that's just showing you the paper is going up and over onto its own belt. And again, the plastic, metal, and glass has fallen through and gone a different way. And it's going to go off and be baled. Now this part of the video, what color is this? What colors do you see here in this picture, in this video? All of them, right? So this is stuff that's called those tanglers that have gotten stuck in the stars that causes a big problem. Because can paper, or can metal and glass and plastic fall through? No, it's all stuck. So now it's going in with the paper, which causes a big problem. We call that contamination. So this is everything that we then have to cut out by hand. Safe? No. Fun? No. Productive? No. It wastes time, it wastes money, and it's not a very fun job. So you might see that we get everything from what looks like flannel shirts to tinsel from maybe Christmas trees to, I don't know, ribbon, to yarn, to bags and bags and bags and bags and bags. So no bags are allowed in the recycling bin ever, unless the one exception is it's got to be a clear plastic bag if you happen to shred paper. Because we don't want the shredded paper just loose with confetti, it goes everywhere. So if you put it in a clear plastic bag, we can see it. We can throw it downstairs with a cardboard. The guy by the cardboard takes it over to where the paper is being baled. He opens up that bag and the paper goes off to be baled efficiently and quickly, instead of just that stuff going everywhere in every other place. So no other bags. Sorry to say, you cannot put all your recycling in a bag. It doesn't make it easier for us. Maybe it's easier for you, but it's just not something that we're allowed to take. We will throw that away, especially if we can't see inside of it. So maybe you've been putting your recycling in black bags all along. We are throwing that away. So your stuff has to be loose. We want the plastic loose. We want the paper loose. We want the metal loose. We just want it loose in your bin. Okay? And humans play a really, really, really important role in our facility. Yes, we have spinning stars. We'll talk next about magnets and other cool things, but humans are the ones taking out the trash. Why would there be trash in the recycling bin, you ask? Well, unfortunately, we get a lot of it because people think, well, I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to put it in my recycling bin. Someone else is going to deal with this. I don't want it anymore. Or I don't really care which bin it goes in. I'm just going to throw it in there. So no matter what, we get trash, and humans have to pick it out with their hands. They have gloves, they have masks, they have all the safety equipment they need. And of course they get a lot of breaks, but it's not great. So we want to make sure that you at home take out what you should first. So we don't want what we cannot take. And again, we want your paper, your plastic, your metal, your glass, and your plastic containers. We don't want things like your hangers. We don't want things like your beer tops. These can be returned back to Allagash and Austin Street Brewing Company and so many other places. Check the PakTech, P-A-K-T-E-C-H, I believe, website to see where they can be taken back. We don't want things like waxy cups. And how do you know they're waxy? Well, I just ran my fingernail around them and there's some wax. So if it's got wax on it, it's not recyclable. If you were to happen to take a cup and run your fingernail down it and there was no wax, nothing, then it's totally great to recycle. And we don't want things like your styrofoam because it's so lightweight. We can't take styrofoam. That has to go in the trash can because the closest place to recycle that is actually New Jersey or so. And that's a really, really far way just to take styrofoam. Now, styrofoam, again, is recyclable, but not here in Maine. But I want to show you what they make from it, or at least part of the process. This is styrofoam. It's been what we call degassed, meaning they suck the gas out of this stuff. And yes, this is black and this is white. So this was white styrofoam. If it was this, it would be black styrofoam like this. But they degas it and then they can actually re-gas it and make more styrofoam out of this. So pretty cool process, but again, it doesn't happen anywhere close to us. So again, we don't want any of your trash in the recycling because humans have to take it out because there's not one machine or even 100 machines to take out different types of trash. So that is the trash piece. No trash in your recycling bin, please. Next up, remember, we've already taken out the cardboard with the big stars and the paper with the small stars and the trash with the hands. Now we're taking out the metals. Two types of metals are what we use every day. We call them ferrous and non-ferrous, meaning will attract to a magnet that's got iron, steel in it, and will not attract to your regular magnet. Fun example is if you want to take a refrigerator magnet, attach it to your soup can, it will stay. And that's what's happening here. The magnet is grabbing it and throwing it in a bin. Grabbing, throwing anything that's ferrous or able to be magnetic into a bin. Whereas if you were to take that same magnet and try and attach it to your aluminum, it'd fall off every single time. So what we use here is called a reverse eddy current magnet. So there's a magnet under the belt and it's actually pushing things away. It's kind of repelling, like, I don't want to be next to you. Go away, metal, over there. So a reverse eddy current magnet is pushing away anything that's non-ferrous, mostly aluminum, which is really cool. So two types of metals taken out with two different types of magnets. And up next, we've got our broken glass. So we take your glass, your spaghetti sauce jars, your mayonnaise jars, your jam jars, all those containers, and we actually smash them. We smash them up, and then they go off, and they can turn into new things, like you can see on the screen. Pothole fillers, it can be put into new construction underneath buildings, so the building's not like this, it's nice and level, so another filler, or countertops. How cool is that? So you might see all the different colors in there. This side is nice and smooth because that would be the top of your counter, and this side not so smooth and shiny because that's just underneath and it doesn't matter. But either way, you can see how much neato glass there is in there. So we take your glass and we reuse it instead of recycling it. And then finally, your plastics. Remember, how many plastics do we use day to day, year to year? 7. So we take out the number 1 plastic, meaning if you look at the bottom of your cups, your raspberry containers, even your gelato containers, there's a number 1 on there. And this machine is actually seeing the number 1 and then blowing a little puff of air at it, and then seeing another number 1, blowing another puff of air, seeing another number 1, puff of air. Now, can it see number 2? No. 3? No. 4, 5, 6, 7? No. It can only see number 1 because we've set the machine to read the chemical makeup of all the things that pass underneath it. So it's not reading the number, it's actually reading what the plastic is truly made out of, which is really cool. Number 1 is made of something totally different than number 2. Number 2 is made of something totally different than number 3, and so on. So we sort out the number 1s, they go in their own bin, and then everything else is sorted by hand, again, by more humans. And unfortunately, at this point, they're also picking out more trash if there is any there. So we take out the number 2, we call them natural. So that's how it's almost clear. You know, you can sort of kind of see through it, but not really. That's a natural colored plastic. We sort that onto one bin. This is also number 2. Also, your laundry detergent jugs are number 2. This goes into a different bin. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 go into the third bin. So we're actually taking your plastic out and sorting it 4 ways. 7 plastics into 4 different ways, which is pretty cool. Now, when we sort it all, do we hold on to it or do you think we send it away? We definitely send it away because holding on to it would not be very helpful for us and for recycling. So this is what we call the baler. I like to call this Wall-E. Has anybody ever seen the movie Wall-E? So he right here, or the baler, is making bales or squares or rectangles of material. And there are lines on the bales. Did anybody notice that? Those lines are wire, which is wrapped around the bale to make sure it doesn't come apart whenever we put it on the truck and send it off. And what we do after it comes out of the baler and it's wrapped with wire is Richard or Charlie or Jeremy or Goran or whoever's working that day, he's turning it over or she's turning it over and they're looking at it. They can't see the inside, they don't have x-ray eyes, but they see the outside. And what does it look like he's doing if he finds something that he doesn't like? He's pulling it out by hand and tools. So if he sees a couple things on the outside, he knows there's only a couple things on the inside, totally fine. He'll either put it in a pile outside, also seen back here, or there just happened to be a truck waiting for this movie that we made. And so they put it on a truck and then send it off to new places. So if he sees a whole bunch of stuff on the outside, he knows that there's a whole bunch of stuff on the inside. So he's actually going to take that around front, cut it open, and send it through again so that we get clean stuff sent off. Because no one wants to buy dirty material. We call that contamination in the material. So nobody wants to buy a bale full of plastic bags and shoes and Christmas lights and all the other stuff. So good bales are good. How can you help? Well, we want you to put the right stuff in the recycling bin. Paper, plastic, metal, glass, and the right cardboard, all the good stuff. And of course, the good news is if you recycle the right stuff, it can go off and make wonderful brand new things. Some examples of where things go. Sometimes your cardboard goes to New York or Massachusetts. Sometimes your metals go to Pennsylvania. Sometimes your plastics go to Alabama or Michigan or Georgia. Sometimes your Paper goes to, maybe sometimes it goes overseas, and maybe sometimes it goes to a southern state like Virginia or West Virginia. And then your glass, of course, stays right here in the area, and it gets reused in a lot of fun things. But here's just some examples here. This is the playground in South Portland. Maybe you've seen it before. That is made out of that wonderful milk jug recycled stuff, as well as recycled metals. We've got some shoes made out of your #1 plastics. We've got some toys made out of your milk jugs also. Some sunglasses made out of recycled plastic. Shirts also made out of your #1s, things like your raspberry containers. This is the same exact type of water bottle as this, made out of recycled, anybody remember? Aluminum. This is another aluminum recycled product. It's a company called The Recycle. I believe they're in Oregon, and they make bicycles out of recycled stuff. Way cool. And then the weirdest thing I'm gonna make you think about today, this one right here. Recycled paper, toilet paper. Where does normal toilet paper come from? If you said trees, you're right. We have to go down, we have to cut out trees, and we have to make toilet paper out of that. Or another option is we can take paper, clean it, pulp it up, and make it into toilet paper. So we're using a recycled product instead of a beautiful fresh tree. Think about that. So that's recycling. Next up, we've got one slide on food, because hey, food is not garbage. So if you can, put that compost, that banana peel, the apple core, maybe you're helping your family cook, and or you're cooking yourself and you got the carrot tops or the onion outside. You know, there's just certain parts of certain foods that we just don't eat. That can go in the compost, and it can go off and make and grow new soil and new plants, which is really, really wonderful. And of course, otherwise we burn it as trash, which is not as wonderful. So, to trash. Anything you don't reduce, reuse, recycle, or compost is trash. So we take that trash, anything you put in that trash can, and then it comes to our building. This is it. This is the door where all the trucks drive in. This is what we call the tipping hall. I'll show you a picture of it. That's where all the trash is dumped out. This right here is where the trash is stored, what we call a trash bunker. I'll show you a picture of that. And then we put the trash into what we call a boiler. It's kind of like a giant slide almost. The trash burns here for 4 hours, slowly, slowly, slowly moving down the grates to be burned for about 4 hours. So we take your trash, we burn it, and we turn it into ash, which goes to our ash landfill. And I'll show you a bigger picture of this later, and I'll also talk a lot about that later. So we take your trash and we burn it, and the ash is left over. So here is that trash bunker, sorry, that trash tipping hall. This is where everything is dropped off. And you can see tons of trash here. You might also see open doorways here, here, and here. And you can almost just barely see the claw. I'll show you a video of that in a second, and that'll be much more clear in just a minute. But on this side of the room, that is a trash bunker. So out here, trash tipping hall, trash gets dumped off. In there, that's where everything is moved around. So here's a little video of what's happening in this room here. We have a different front loader, different from the other building, but still the same type of machine. And he's pushing trash into that trash bunker or storage room. You might notice that it's steaming, because actually sometimes we send trash to our landfill. Maybe this room in here is super full and we couldn't fit it in, so we send it to the landfill. Oh, there's that claw coming down. You see it right there? So sometimes we send trash to the landfill, and it does get a little steamy if it's a different temperature outside. But then over here, look over here. Who has Portland purple trash bags? Or maybe I think Gorham also has purple trash bags. That is your trash. So that was your Portland or Gorham trash day. So material is pushed into the giant room, and then the claw picks it up. So here's a picture of that. Trash storage bunker can hold around 4,000 tons of trash, or if we weren't to touch it at all, it's about a week's worth of garbage from all of our towns. So holds a lot of stuff, but cool fact, we're open 24 hours a day. So we're constantly pushing trash in, picking it up, and burning it. Trucks don't come to us 24 hours a day. We have certain times where trucks come to us, and it's most of the day, but not all day and all night. But we're always we're always burning, we're always combusting, we're always moving the trash. So here is the long version. The short version was we take your trash, we burn it, we turn it into ash. Here's a long version. You and I make trash every day, whether it's your gum, your old smelly shoes that you've worn out, if you have any kiddos in the house, dirty diapers, maybe your Christmas lights stopped working, you can take those to Goodwill. They'll actually strip them for copper. We don't want those in your trash can. But other trash and things like that goes in the trash can. Eventually the trash truck picks it up, and then he comes and he drops it off, gives us all that trash. Then that front loader, that's his job to shove it into the giant room. And the claw picks it up from there. I'll show you a video of that in just a minute. The claw brings it up to the 6th floor and drops it into what we call the hopper. The hopper is like a slide, but is this the kind of slide you want to go on? No. Trash falls down into the fire and burns for around 4 hours. And the ash falls down after it's completely burned. Remember that ash? That comes down here. Just like you start with a campfire, you start with wood and you turn it into ash. We start with trash, burns into ash. So from here, after 4 hours it burns, it cools off here for 4 more hours. So it's about an 8-hour process there. And the ash comes this way on a conveyor belt. All the while that conveyor belt is slowly shaking to make a nice thin layer, because right about here, we have a giant, what we call drum magnet. It's just a huge circular magnet. It's constantly turning, turning, turning. And what do magnets do? They take out any metal that was put in that trash, it's ferrous, and throws it into a bin, and the ash falls straight down. So we're able to recycle the ferrous metal, which is really, really great. So that's the trash turning into ash, going to the landfill, one thing we make. Another thing is electricity. So notice wall number 1, wall number 2 is around that fire. In those walls, there's pipes, nice and thick. See how thick that is? Running through that pipe is water. There's not actually just 2 walls, there's 4, because we don't have 1 fire, we have 2. So 2 walls on one fire plus 2 walls on another fire equals 4 walls. In those walls, we have miles, lots and lots of pipe running through there. And through that pipe, we have water that's been demineralized or cleaned with a reverse osmosis filter, which is pretty cool. So the water's running through the walls next to the fire. What do you think happens when water gets really, really, really hot because the fire is right next to it? If you said steam, you're right. We make steam, which pushes a turbine, but that's not as helpful. So we actually connect that turbine with a generator. And what does a generator do? It makes electricity. Great. So we're making electricity from your trash. Now, all the while we are making pollution, because anytime you burn anything from a campfire to a big old bag of trash, you're going to make pollution. So we treat that 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways before we test it at 5, and only really clean air comes out the stack. This is 96% or water vapor. So how do we do it? Right here, number 1, we're taking out the nitrogen oxides with urea. We mix those together in the right amounts, and it doesn't completely disappear. It turns into things like nitrogen, CO2, and water vapor. That stuff is all normal and natural and fine and safe to be outside. So that stuff keeps going instead of the nitrogen oxides keep going. So all the gases minus the nitrogen oxides keep to here, where we're taking out the mercury and dioxin furans. So with that, we're spraying something called activated carbon. So spraying this kind of black, grainy looking stuff. And it's carbon that we spray in because we want to absorb or connect to and make heavy the mercury and dioxin furan molecules. So instead of being nice and light and carefree, they're actually heavy and they fall down. And they fall down around here, and we'll come back to what happens here in just a minute. So gases keep going to number 3. Number 3 is where we take out the acidic gases. That's sulfur dioxide and some other acidic gases that are pretty nasty that we don't want outside, that happen when you burn trash. So we are taking that out with the help of something called lime slurry. Now, if you know anything about chemistry, you're going to know that lime is a basic compound, and sulfuric dioxide, sulfuric acid, sulfuric dioxide is a very acidic gas. When you put them in the right amounts of an acid and a base, it neutralizes. Again, doesn't completely disappear, but turns into safe and fine things to go outside. So that's then neutralized. And then right here, number 4, we're spraying something called, we're using something called an electrostatic precipitator. Everyone say electrostatic precipitator. Probably one of my all-time favorite couple of words. So these are 6 giant curtains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 enormous curtains. And they are actually attracting particulates to them. They're capturing them and they can't go past to the next curtain. They can't get past. So not every single one gets stuck on the first curtain or the second curtain or the third curtain. Some of them do make it on, but almost none of them make it out the 6th curtain, the end. So we're removing all the particulates. And then when those curtains are really heavy and they're getting full, we wrap on them with special wrappers. The particulates fall down to around here. And guess what they're meeting with? Mercury dioxide and furan molecules that have been adsorbed by the activated carbon. So all that stuff mixes together in kind of, I like to call it a cement mixer type machine. And it mixes it in with what we call the bottom ash, which is the stuff that was burned. And then that goes to the landfill. So it stays there forever and ever. All the pollution is stuck inside. It's not going out. It's not emitting. It's not reacting. It's what we call chemically inert, which I think is pretty darn cool. And then finally, number 5 here, we're testing everything. So that's our pollution control tests, making sure everything is safe. We don't want anything to go outside that shouldn't be out there. So what we're releasing up here is 96% and a little bit of pollution. We're allowed to emit quite a bit more. I'll actually show you a cool graph about that later. So a couple pictures and videos just to show you what we were talking about. This is that trash bunker where trash comes in and it sits there until a claw picks it up. If you've ever seen Toy Story 3, this is where they got the inspiration for that. So you might even notice that there's purple trash bags down here again. That's where the trash bags were. They're being pushed in here. But of course, we also get trash from everywhere from Rockland to Kittery. So lots and lots and lots of places give us trash, not just Portland. So maybe you noticed that he dropped the trash. Did you see that? So he's aerating it. He picks it up and he drops it and actually gives it more surface area. It separates things so they're not all stuck together. And then it actually burns a lot better. So he might aerate it. He also can mix it too. And now he's actually picking it up and bringing it to the 6th floor, which is where I'm standing taking this video right now. And he's going to put it into the hopper, also called the slide. So there are 2 claws. And one is manually controlled, meaning someone is using kind of a joystick to control the claw. And one can either be manually controlled by a human, or we can kind of set a computer and say, go. And it can work itself out, which is pretty darn cool, I think. So he's dropped it into the hopper. And from there, it goes down to the fire. So this is about 8 seconds of burning, but we're burning constantly 24 hours a day, which is really cool. So this is where I'm standing for that video. I'm standing up on a little platform looking in a window and seeing this burn. Now, look at these lines on the walls. We'll talk about what that was later, but maybe you already have an idea. I'll give you a hint. And of course, what are we creating? Well, we talked about that, but here's some pictures. We're making ash. So we've reduced the trash from 100% down to 10%. A lot less space is used in the landfill, and also no pollution is being made. We're removing any metal with a magnet, any ferrous metal that is. We take out about 12 tons a day, that's 24 hours, which is crazy. A lot is recycled. And then it comes here to the landfill. This is what we call landfill lining. It's kind of a plastic stuff. And you can see that with the lines right here, it's lining the earth, but it's not just that protecting the earth. There's also layers of sand, gravel, and clay. So lots and lots of material covering the earth to make sure that it's safe. This is it close up with the ash here on the cover, the landfill, and then here's it farther away. you'll notice maybe it's kind of a little bit calm. It looks nice. It's not scary. And of course, with our ash fill, we're avoiding methane creation. So in a regular landfill, methane is created and made. It's not good. It's not safe for the environment. That's made when your organic material breaks down incorrectly. We're also generating electricity from that, which is amazing. We're removing the metals due to that giant magnet. Remember that in the building? We're also saving emissions or fossil fuels or gas because we're only going 3 miles. This is our landfill. This is our waste energy building. They're 3 miles away. Pretty cool. And of course, next to our waste energy building is our recycling building. So we're all very, very close. Here's something cool. Speaking of metal, for about 4 years, we actually took out a lot of trash out of the recycling, or sorry, out of the trash, out of the landfill to get some metal out. And we also removed a lot of trash, and we did some kind of cool experiments. We saw a newspaper from 1992. Remember, this is in 2011 or so. 1992, 2011 minus 1992. It's a lot of years in between, but this newspaper looks like someone just poured a can of water on it. So it wasn't decomposing. It wasn't going anywhere. And speaking of things not going anywhere, does anyone like the Prince music? We got Prince tape here, as well as lots and lots and lots and lots of bags here. Gross, didn't break down at all. As well as a Spam container, a sock, a tarp, other things. Ruffles potato chips. This right here, it's disgusting, but it's a chicken breast. They took that right out of the package. It looks like chicken. So again, nothing is breaking down in a normal landfill. And speaking of our landfill, we have really cool wetland treatment systems. We also pump it to a central station where it gets pumped to Portland Water District, where it's clean there. But any what we call runoff or water running off of the landfill gets treated safely. This is what we call your regular typical landfill. This is not being combusted or burned. This is your trash that is just put in whole. There's fire sometimes. There's methane that's created. Not great. So our way is pretty darn cool. Of course, we're making steam. We power up to 15,000 homes per year. And we do that by using the tubes. So check this out. These are the tubes. Sorry, this says inside boiler during yearly cleaning. So this is where the trash and the fire would be. We're cleaning it out so you can really see those tubes easily. The tubes heat up because the water is inside there. The steam goes to the turbine deck, which is where the turbine is. This is another picture of the inside. So just imagine that spinning really, 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 really fast. That's connected to the generator. Remember, the generator is the one making electricity with the help of the turbine, with the help of the steam. And then, of course, we are making a whole lot of electricity. We use about 10 to 15% at our buildings, power our recycling building, power our trash building, power our 2 electric cars, and then the rest we send out to the grid. We actually sell it. So we're powering up to 15,000 homes with that. And of course, we're making the gross toxic gases, but we take those gases, nitrogen oxides, mercury dioxide, furans, sulfur dioxide, and other gases. And the particulates, and we either spray in urea, carbon injection, or lime slurry, or use that electrostatic precipitator. And of course, we're testing to make sure everything coming out of that stack is safe for us. We have some pretty cool standards that we live up to every single year. We win awards, or a certificate rather, where we're meeting all these environmental criteria to make sure that we're being safe with our earth. And here's just a little example of that. These red lines are the limits of lead that we're allowed to emit. We're nowhere close even on our highest year, but check out last year. We're so far below that. So again, we emit a little bit, we're allowed a bit more. Here's a cool picture of that electrostatic precipitator curtain. And here's a computer screen where it's watched to make sure it's working. Remember, that's taking out the particulates and then being wrapped on to make sure that none of it gets outside. And finally, we're taking all this stuff and turning it into just a little bit and making electricity at the same time. So pretty cool things are happening here at ecomaine with your trash. But of course, remember to reduce, reuse, recycle, and compost first so that we can have a healthier environment, use a lot less natural resources. And of course, it also saves a lot of money if we do it right. If we put all the trash in the recycling, gonna have a problem. It's gonna be more expensive for your towns. Maybe you don't have a job quite yet, maybe you do, but it's wasting a lot of money if we recycle wrong. So remember, take that trash and take out all the reusable stuff, give it away if you can, or use it yourself. Take out all the recycling, put it in the recycling bin. We'll take it, we'll sort it, send it off to make new things. Take all the food waste or organics or leftover food and stuff and put it in a compost bin if you can. It will turn into soil. So you'll have a lot less trash, which is really, really amazing. I was working with one school and they didn't have recycling or compost, and they had over 9 bags of trash every day at lunch. And then they put in recycling and compost in their cafeterias and they had less than 1 because everything else was recyclable or compostable and even reusable. They were throwing away milk that wasn't opened, or carrot bags that weren't opened, or things that were untouched. So make sure you're reducing and reusing as well as recycling and composting too. So I hope you really like that webinar. If you have questions, feel free to email info@ecomaine.org, info@ecomaine.org. Would love to answer any questions you have. And definitely look up our recycling list of what we want, what we don't want, also on ecomaine.org. We have something cool called a Recyclopedia too. It's an online database that you can find over 1,200 different items in there. Everything from gum to hockey puck. You know, do I recycle my ice skates? Do I recycle my cardboard box? You know, what do I do with all these things? So it's called the Recyclopedia. You can find it for a free download on your app, or free download on your smartphone through your app, or it's also on ecomaine.org in the upper right-hand corner. You can click on it and use it online too. So hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay well and be safe. Bye.